I still got almost 22 years to go before a parole.
My warrant is coming up in 8 days.
I'm going home soon.
Cold eyes meet mine. Old heart.
I wasn't afraid of a lot in my whole life, but I was afraid when I got out after that long.
Tiring of this life's game.
I'd like to be able to have some control over myself and my life. I want some life.
Morning comes too soon.
Oh yeah, there's tons of drugs in prison. Okay, the first time that I ever did morphine was actually in jail. I never tried it on the streets. I tried it when I went to jail. I smoked crack in jail, I did speed in jail, I did Special K in jail, I did morphine in jail. It wasn't very much fun because, you'd get high and then you'd sit in your cell all day, but, we still did it.
When you're doing life, they tell you, go away and come back and see us in 15 years. What do you got to do but go get in trouble and get high for 15 years?
One rig may last a year. Between how many women? It's fixed every different way you could imagine if you're a user.
I'm HIV and Hep C positive. Hep C, I've had it for 10 years. Actually, since my very first needle.
That's how I got my Hep C. Sharing needles when I was using before, when I used to use.
That's how I got it, I guess, sharing needles, dirty needles.
I have been tested for Hep C. I'm positive. I've had it for about 12 years now, as far as I know.
Hep C, I know it's a liver disease. In the end, it turns into cirrhosis of the liver.
Hep C is one of the most passed along diseases in the justice system. It affects the liver and I believe the kidneys and it is a deadly disease over time.
Hepatitis C is a blood-borne virus, but it can be spread in unique ways. It can be spread blood to blood, like if you're in a fight and someone has Hep C and you break skin and that person has blood, you can introduce it into your body that way. You can also get it if you're a needle user and it can stay in the barrel of a needle for a long time. How long? No one's going to tell you that. It used to be that we put a number on it, but we realized it's a very hardy virus.
Hep C you can get by sharing tattoo guns, ink.
By sharing pipes, by sharing needles.
Fights, blood-to-blood contact.
If you're sharing straws for snorting cocaine, you can get Hep C from that. Crack pipes is another one that you have to be careful with because people tend to burn their lips. And then when they're tweaking out and stuff, they tend to bite their lips. And then that way blood can come and it can get onto that pipe.
You can get it from using drugs. You can get it from the water. You can get it from the spoon, the cooker. You can get it from the filters, the cotton balls. It can be passed through all those ways.
Nail clippers, toothbrushes, razor blades, anything that might have blood on it, even earrings, things like that you might, borrow from the guy next door or something like that for your visit.
I was going to use my buddy's nail clippers one day, and then he was like, oh no, I got Hep C, and he told me that he had Hep C, right? But if he wouldn't have, I could have caught it, And after that, I never asked nobody for their nail clippers ever again, I just bought my own and wouldn't let nobody use them,
It used to be that they felt there really was no treatment for hepatitis C other than having an organ transplant. Now they realize that there are treatments available for hepatitis C, but the problem is you have to be willing to really clean up your life. You've got to stay away from the high-risk lifestyle because the side effects of the drugs that are giving you are very severe, and you have to be committed to treatment.
If you have hepatitis C, you still don't want to share equipment with someone else who has hep C because you could get their strain of hepatitis C. We know that with HIV, if I have HIV and my partner has HIV, if we have sex without a condom and I get reinfected with his strain, whichever is the more virulent, the stronger strain, it's the one that takes over. So it may be more difficult for my doctor to treat.
HIV, I believe you can get it through, having sex, needles.
My mother had HIV for about 10 years, and you can get it through sexual, like blood-to-blood contact.
HIV is a unique virus in that you can get it both through blood and sexual transmission. It certainly is prevalent amongst a high-risk population. It's a virus that is treatable but is not curable, meaning that people can live a long time with the HIV virus if they change their lifestyle, but they will not be cured.
Like, you can't get it through saliva or like drinking out of the same cup, bottles, whatever. Like, HIV, if it's open, say there's blood on the table or on the floor, if it's open, it dies immediately.
In terms of protection for HIV and hepatitis C, the precautions you use are exactly the same. You always use your own rigs. You always use your own needles. You always use condoms. You always use your own stuff.
I guess I don't know a whole lot about harm reduction other than the basic rule of thumb. Don't share bodily fluids and take which precautions you can in the situation you have.
Harm reduction is for people that aren't quite ready to quit using yet. That's why there's some harm reduction things in place. There's the needle exchanges. There's the methadone program. You know, there's bleach in the prisons. All those kind of things will keep you safer and healthier, and hopefully, you know, you won't end up with a disease at the end of it all.
We have bleach in our house, yeah, to rinse out rigs and so that they don't get anything. And a lot aren't careful. I was never careful.
The reason that you should use bleach, if even though it doesn't kill the hep C virus, is that it does kill the HIV virus. So it is better to use bleach than nothing at all. It does keep you safer.
Because I don't just meet people and do drugs with them like I used to. You know, now it's just like the people that I know are tight with me are the only people I'll crack to.
Word is no good as far as telling people that they're safe and it's okay to share with them. I know that's really hard to do with a lot of people because doing drugs is something that you share.
Somebody asks you, oh, can I have a hoot, right? You're just going to hand them your pipe, you know? You're not going to give them some dope so they can pack their own pipe, you know? Because that's like giving them free dope, and people don't do that.
For crack pipes, the best thing to use is rubber tubing on the ends of the crack pipes. It will stop you from burning your lips and, you know, causing any kind of bleeding that might, you know, cause the virus to be passed on.
I've seen people picking up water out of the puddle in a syringe, you know, just to shoot their dope, and it's not healthy. It's not clean. They have needle exchanges out there.
A couple of more rigs and some condoms? Yeah.
They have these places for people like us. We need to use them.
Thank you. Okay, thanks.
We give clean needles to people for dirty needles that are doing intravenous drugs. We have a nursing station. We have aspirins and Tums. If you do have abscesses, if you're kind of scared that you're on parole and you're going to get sent back, you can come and see these nurses and they're not going to rat you out, or, you know, they're going to take care of your health.
Yeah, you need to go get some really heavy-duty antibiotics.
If you don't know about certain drugs, the nurses here at the Needle Exchange have a drug book. They can look up the pills. You always want to try and test your drugs if possible. If you're doing drugs in prison, and I know there's no drugs in prison, but if you're doing drugs in prison, try to eat your drugs instead of fixing them, because you really are taking a risk when you're sharing any kind of drug paraphernalia equipment.
I decided to quit and go on methadone. It took all my craving for the morphine away. It took my craving for the crack. Like, I didn't expect it to do that, but it did. I didn't even want to use anything, and I was happy.
You don't have your IV.
Well, I think the reason overdoses are such a big problem when people get out is because it's controlled in here, you know? Everybody's trying to get that high, that bigger high. They're all chasing that high. So when you get out and, you know, instead of buying a .2 in here for $100 or $150, whatever it is that you pay, you can get out there and you can buy a gram for that price, or 2 grams.
When inmates first get out of prison, it's usually the first 7 days that people end up ODing. And the reason that they end up ODing is usually because they're mixing their drugs, they're using alcohol and drugs together. They usually have more drugs because they cost less.
They don't realize that they've been away and that the drugs they're doing, they're not top quality inside, you know? And they get out and they'll spend that same money and they'll get the high they're looking for, all right, and then some, you know? Wind up in an ambulance or possibly dead.
You need to, you know, be safe when you get out and take your time, you know, and, you know, just slow down.
I think my tattoos tell a story. What that story would end up like, I don't know. It's just kind of pain and suffering on pain and suffering, you know? Kind of something to mark my passage of time.
I got a few, like, in memory of my uncle, one for my grandfather, one for my mother, when they passed on.
On this one here, I got it done inside. This one here around my collar, just a barbed wire. My last name on my back. Like, after I hear about all this Hep C and HIV, mostly inside the prison, I most likely would go to a tattoo parlor.
We have a sterilization process that we go through, and we certainly have an autoclave on the premises. Ink gets contaminated if it's being reused. We want to use what we call ink caps, where we're pouring in individual amount of inks and throwing them out when we're finished with that particular client.
I got one in here, and yeah, we used all new needles, threw them away, everything. The person that gave it to me wore gloves. Most careful. Absolutely, I tell people that I'm HIV.
But you gotta make sure everything's your own. Don't start borrowing stuff, or like even barrels and stuff like that. Build your own barrel. Takes 2 seconds.
Pattern is used to put the outline on somebody, and sometimes when you're halfway through it, you got to put the pattern on again in certain places. And sometimes blood gets on that pattern, and if you go to use it on somebody else, it could be passed along that way too, through the blood. So
Everybody that comes through here, we need to treat on a level of believing that they're carrying some sort of disease. That is not only for the safety of every client that comes in here, but also for the safety of ourselves. Then we're always following the same procedures to avoid any kind of cross-contamination at all. Never assume anything.
kind of unprotected sex could spread disease. I would say all types of sex, other than maybe a hand job. And even then, you might be tempting fate.
If you have anal sex, you can transmit HIV if you're not wearing a condom. It can also happen if you just have vaginal sex, whether you're male or female. We used to think that oral sex was quite low risk, but if there are sores in the mouth, it increases your risk. So we would still suggest that you use a condom if you're going to have oral sex.
Gonorrhea and chlamydia you can get without having intercourse. You just need a little bit of secretions and some friction, and it's done. You can get it from oral sex. A lot of people feel that oral sex is, it's very, very safe, and it's not. You can get syphilis that way, you can get gonorrhea that way, you can get herpes that way.
I ended up sleeping with this girl, and the next day she says, I should have told you something. She says, I have HIV, and I'm thinking, what? After I sleep with you, you tell me this? So I ended up going, and they told me I could have charged her and stuff, but I got all my blood work done, and I found out I didn't have it, but I also found out I had Hep C at the time, so.
Oh yeah, I use condoms. Yeah.
Why do you use condoms?
Because I don't really trust lots of the girls that I sleep with because, yeah. I think that they sleep with lots of other people that have dope, so, and I don't want to catch anything,
Always use condoms. That's a given, even if you're not in a high-risk lifestyle.
It's free.
And condoms are free, and they work. It's good birth control.
We have condoms. We have a first aid kit that gets refilled once a week. So if there's nothing there, you can go to healthcare and ask. Or even if you need something that's not in the kit, there's no condoms or dental dams, you could go to healthcare that day and say, I need some.
We know that sexual contact does occur in prison, but we also know that inmates are very reluctant to talk about it. So it's something that it's really important that if you've had sex contact, whether it's chosen or unchosen, that you choose to get tested, because then you can get the follow-up treatment.
I usually go get checked out once every year or two, I haven't went lately, but probably should.
I should get another test this year. Do it every year, right? At least once a year. Well, because I'm in jail, I'm not doing anything, so.
I got tested for both Hep C and HIV when I got married out in Edmonton Max.
Basically, pretty much whenever I'm back in again, after a romp in the real world, I like to get all the fluids checked, make sure life's still, my life expectancy is pretty good.
When you go get that HIV test or whatever, and it's like, it just eats you alive, and like, what are you gonna do when you find out if it's positive, right? That's the scariest feeling in the world. I think one time it must have took at least a month to get my results. I was shaking it rough.
Well, if you've been tested, you're gonna sweat. If you've gone out on a limb and asked to be tested, it's because you've done something somewhere and you're already sweating. So I think that you're not going to sweat anywhere just waiting for the answer.
Can I get you to...
When you're in prison, who's got to know that you get tested? Absolutely nobody but healthcare. You go down there, you